Psych Sessions is sponsored by STP. That's the Society for the Teaching of Psychology, APA Division II, or our teaching tribe. STP members can apply for the Professional Development Network, where we match mentors with mentees. Please visit teachpsych.org/apply mentor or teachpsych.org/apply mentee by June 15th. Also, please check out the new blog, Diversity Matters, with entries prepared by STP's Diversity Committee. Visit teachpsych.org/diversity matters. As always, we encourage you to become a member of STP for only $25 a year. Thanks.
Hello, and welcome to Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. I'm Eric Landrum, along with Garth Neufeld, your podcast hosts. As the name implies, we center on conversations about teaching, but we often veer into other interesting topics, which is the end stuff. This is episode number 93, where I had the opportunity to interview the leadership team of the Association of Heads of Departments of Psychology, or AHDP, in Atlanta, Georgia, consisting of Susie Henderson from Michigan Technological University, David Kreiner from the University of Central Missouri, and Lee Gillis from Georgia College and State University. Now, before you hear the interview, please allow me to share some listening tips and some of my favorite moments. Now, as I listen back to this interview recorded in October of 2019 in Atlanta, Georgia, I cringed a bit only at myself because as I tried to compliment these three individuals over and over, I realized that sometimes it didn't sound that way. And because I really respect and admire what they do with this organization, but I kept pushing on, how come there aren't more people? And don't you want more people? And it became really clear that that's not really their goal, to grow exponentially. And so I hope they'll forgive me when they go back and listen to this podcast. I do think it's a well-kept secret, and I think of this as a powerful support group for current department chairs. They are very serious and very committed to the notion of confidentiality in their meetings, because they want department chairs to be able to come and express current problems that they're having in their home departments and then be able to brainstorm. And it's not that they come and they talk about the names of individuals, but if you come to a meeting and give enough details, we all know from a research context, give enough variables and you can probably identify a person. And so the folks at AHDP are very serious about the confidentiality of their discussions. And so I really appreciate and respect and admire that professionalism. And so we spent really the entire hour. This really wasn't the traditional type of podcast where we got into background and origin stories of the three individuals. In fact, Dave Kreiner has been on a prior podcast, and I encourage you to go back and find that one. And I would have Susie and Lee on their own individual podcast in a heartbeat. I hope to do that in the future. So each kind of takes turns introducing their own institutional context, what they've taken away from AHDP, what they have plans as a leadership team for future conferences, and what they see in the trends in higher education. And they even give examples of activities that they've come away with from past meetings. And so I really do encourage you to listen and take away good ideas. And if you're a chair, to seriously consider attending this. And if you're not a chair, share this podcast with your department chair. And probably more importantly, share the existence of this organization with the leadership team in your department on your college and university campus, and make this resource available. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to another episode of Psych Sessions. This is an extra special episode. I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am with the leadership who can't turn off their phones, apparently, before they have before we record an episode, and I am with the leaders of the Association of Heads of Departments of Psychology, a very awkward acronym, AHDP. I have to think about it beforehand. And if we go around the horn from my left to my right, I'm with Dave Kreiner, Lee Gillis, and Susie Amato Henderson. Hi, folks.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, Eric.
Thank you so much. It's been a long but good conference day. You came back after dinner, late at night on a Friday in the Eastern time zone. I really appreciate this.
Glad to be here.
That's awesome. And so I really want to take some time to give you a chance on the podcast to tell our listeners about AHDP, what your mission is, kind of talk about the programming, the audience that you serve, and then we can do a free-for-all and talk about whatever the heck that you'd like to. And so I know that Lee has been a part of this for a long time. I can't remember if Susie's the current chair or Dave's the current chair. Susie,
I'm chair-elect.
Susie's the chair-elect. And so if you could just kind of, one of the three of you, talk about maybe the overall mission of the Association of Heads of Departments of Psychology.
We'll hand that over to Lee because he's got the history.
Awesome.
I was very fortunate in my first year as chair to be advised to come to this conference. It was nearby because I'm in Millersville, Georgia, to come to Atlanta. And the thing that I appreciated from the very beginning is that the only way you could be a part of this group was that you had to be a head or a chair, depending on how that was looked at, of the psychology department. And there were lots of sharing of wonderful ideas. And so what I learned is that it was a gathering of like-minded people who shared the same job. And we shared a lot of our joys and sorrows and conflicts, and were able to do that in a safe space and get a lot of good feedback from a lot of people. So we were chartered in 97. Our birthplace was in the Southeastern Psychological Association, as I understand it. And one of the things I was saying to people at dinner tonight and about this conference today is that I'm so proud of the fact that we've expanded beyond the Southeast, and we really are nationwide. And I think it has a lot to do with how we've shared the purpose and mission of this organization.
So I'm just going to add a little bit. Here's the thing that surprises me. So it's an intimate group.
Yeah.
What would you say, and you don't have to give me the exact numbers, what would you say the attendance is this year if you were to ballpark it?
I'd say it's roughly about exactly 38.
Okay. All right. So Dave Kreiner there, the statistician. I know you teach a graduate level statistics class, right?
Correct.
Was that the population or the sample? How would you like to characterize that?
That's the population of people attending this year.
Roughly, possibly, approximately 38. Okay. So, and I had this conversation with Susie last night when I saw her. I'm surprised it's not 380. And I know that might be beyond your comfort zone to think about the logistics. Oh my gosh, how are we going to plan for 380? How are we going to have seating and food and all that? But this is like the best kept secret organization ever. But okay, but Lee, do you really want to do that? I mean, do you? And this is the none of my business portion of the program, but the amazing programming that I see you providing. Do you really want to keep it at 38, or wouldn't it be better to provide it to 380 chairs and heads?
Well, I will say this. I want all the people here who want to be here for the purpose of learning from other heads of the departments of psychology. And if that could be 1,000, or it could be 30, or the 60 or so that used to be here. When I first came, there were that many people. It's still the same vibe, same rules about what is said at AHDP stays here. But if they want to come, please come, and we will accommodate it.
But, I mean, you could have the same rules with 380.
So, personally, when I threw my hand up in the air last year to run as president-elect, one of the first things that I said is, how do we get more people to know about this really cool thing that we're doing? It's a great support group. And so we've chatted a little bit, but the year flew by too quickly to do a whole lot. This past year, we made an effort to host a session at all of the regional psych conferences, and Dave and I were at the MPA, Midwestern Psych Association conference. We had a fantastic group show up, which is difficult to do at MPA because it's so jam-packed with activities. We had a great conversation. It was just an informal, kind of what we do here, but on an hour and a half scale instead of a day and a half. And so I think we just need to get the word out. We're actually hard to find. When I became chair, actually it was right prior to becoming chair, but I knew it was coming. I knew that there was no training for chairs. I knew that the guy that had been in the seat was retiring after 30 years, and he was hitting the road to travel. And so I hopped online and did a lot of Googling before I actually stumbled over this group.
Yeah.
So we're well hidden unintentionally, I
Right.
think.
And you I hope you all know, and we're all friends enough to know, I'm not being critical.
No.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm not being critical. I am being admirational. Admiring?
Yeah.
It could be the bourbon speaking. I don't know. But there is opportunity, and I almost think of this as one of the sessions we heard today about badging.
Yeah.
The chairs have been talking. Oh, can I mention the sessions? Am I allowed to talk about it?
We hypothetically may have talked about badging.
I might have just broken a rule that I was told I couldn't break.
I was just correct you. I think the issue about not speaking about it is when people are presenting difficult situations with their university, and there's a possibility that you could trace that back to what that was all about.
All right,
as long as you're away from that, you're good to go.
So, but I mean, it's the same kind of idea that our students might look at badges and credentials as a way to differentiate themselves in a way to show that they have special skills and training. I think AHDP could be that very same thing for department chairs. How does a dean help a chair become qualified to do his or her job? Well, one of the things they might do is provide training and support through an organization like this one. It just strikes me is that it's awesome that all y'all exist, and it's a shame that only 38 people are here. That's
this year.
What is our
this year.
membership, Dave?
Our membership is a little bit over 100.
Yeah.
So it's an annual. It's actually very inexpensive to be a member.
$25 a year.
Yeah,
And we raised that 2 years ago from $15 to $25. Yes.
That's pretty steep.
And it did not deter any membership.
None of those 100 people.
It's probably one of these things where maybe more people joined because you valued yourself more. Oh, it's
so
25.
Maybe we need to raise it to $225 next year.
And
I was thinking like $27.50. But
Okay.
I see where you're
now
going.
you guys are messing with me, and I kind of like this. Now you're messing with me. I kind of like
But
that.
Eric, I think the piece that's missing from this is the other important piece of AHDP is our listserv.
Yeah.
It is so invaluable that any member, you can put up a question. So my dean is asking for this. I need an answer today. And you'll get this flurry of members saying blah, 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 blah. And then it ends until the next question.
But do potential members know about that as a member benefit?
Good question.
Not until they stumble upon
Not
it.
until they stumble upon it.
Until they're a member.
And are they auto subscribed as a member once they
Yes,
join?
yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
That's good
Yeah.
for you. That's a good feature. And again, I am not anointed the czar of being critical of member organizations. But do any of you remember? I've been thinking about this, getting the chance to interview y'all. Remember CTUP?
Yeah.
The Council
Yes.
of Teachers of Undergraduate Psychology, that actually went under, and it actually got absorbed in part by STP, the Society for Teaching of Psychology. Very good people running it. Jane Hallinan was a past president of CTUP. I was actually a past president of CTUP, the very first thing I was ever president of on a national basis. And it just kind of fizzled away. had very good intentions and fizzled away. I'd never want to see that happen to AHDP. I think it's a diamond in the rough, and I think it's doing great stuff. So let's talk about that. So talk about what are the benefits if someone became a member. Can you mention in general, without breaking any rules, the type of sessions that a chair or a head would hear if they were to come to a 2019 or a 2020 conference in Atlanta?
Well, what I'll say is this, that we put out a call for what are you interested in talking about as chairs. So a big list forms from that. And then people sort of rank order, what are we interested in talking about from that list? And then people volunteer to lead a discussion about various things on that list. So it's all internally very grassroots generated, and we have great discussions about things that people are interested in, currently interested in.
Our sessions tend to focus on the duties that chairs have, and particularly the ones that they have in common, the issues that come up a lot. So we see, for example, assessment is a theme that comes up a lot. Personnel is a theme.
Student
curriculum.
Achievement. Curriculum, student achievement, curricular issues.
So would a chair be able to come to this and go home with specific ideas for how to solve problems? Or are they going to come back with a bunch of theories and reference citations?
More the former, how to solve problems. Yeah. We're a very, very practical group.
When I came in, I thought I was alone in the world on my own little island. Often I am.
Isn't
alone
technically
MTU, where I live is on an island technically.
On an island,
so I'll give you that.
All right, thank you.
So, but I felt like I'm sure other chairs get trained, and it's just something about this strange university that I work at that provided no training for a chair. And it was very much, when I left here, there was kind of a weight off my shoulders, relief that, okay, nobody really knows what they're doing, which I don't mean to say, but everyone goes through that same issue. And the connections that I made and recognizing that everyone has kind of the same issues. Some have answers that are better than others, but we all throw ideas around. It made me feel like I had a team on my side when I was going in to start my chair job.
Yeah.
I just want to add to that being a group person, one of Irving Yalom's therapeutic factors is universality, and I feel like that happens here. You hear people say something, and you're going, oh, my goodness, I thought I was the only chair that had that problem, and you hear that around the room, and it's so therapeutic.
It's very therapeutic, actually.
Yes.
So how then, and I actually agree with you. This is the second time I've been. The first time you were very kind and invited me as a guest speaker, and I came, and this is my second year because now I've re-upped and become a department chair. How do you then get people to keep coming back?
Well, the flip side of that for me is that we've had testimonials as people know that they're not going to be the chair next year. And oftentimes it just happens over and over. They'll say the one thing I'll miss about not being a chair is this meeting and coming to this meeting, which is really powerful.
I wish there was some way to keep the dynamics of the meeting being chairs only, but allowing former chairs to still participate.
So you're really serious about that. You got to be a chair.
They
absolutely,
are.
absolutely,
they are, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to be a chair to attend this meeting.
Yes.
Dave almost got thrown out, right?
Well, I mean, I could see for a lot of reasons, but why did he almost get thrown out?
Because of the reorganization at your school, that's what I mean.
Right, but our rule is you're chair over a unit that has a psychology program or program, so that's still true. So I'm still legit, at least in that respect.
So did your program name change or what?
Oh
happened?
yeah,
no,
changed.
just the name of the academic unit that houses the psychology program.
But you were worried. I mean, there was a wonder about that for a bit.
I wondered if that would be an issue, and we checked the rule. And
it was okay.
Maybe psychology should have to come first in your departmental string of names for you to be able to attend this meeting. Because if I remember correctly, it does not appear first.
It does not. And there's a reason for that.
And what is the entire listing of the departments, if you will, please?
So I am the chair of the School of Nutrition, Kinesiology, and Psychological Science.
Because those three go together so popular in the U.S.
They do more than you would think.
You're exactly right.
So,
more than I would think. You are exactly right.
Similarly, I am the chair of the Department of Cognitive and Learning Sciences, which has psychology and teacher education. So the cognitive came first.
All right. And so, Lee, while we're around the table, what are you the chair of?
The Department of Psychological Science.
And not,
He's too normal.
And not the Department of Psychological Sciences.
No. Psychological Science.
Well, just for the record, I'm the chair of the Department of Psychological Science. So with you there.
No S's, singular.
All right. So what if someone is the incoming chair and they haven't started yet? Are they allowed to attend the meeting?
So I did that, but I asked permission. I already knew that I was going to have the job. I just didn't start yet. And they had to go and do a huddle somewhere and get back to me.
What if someone is, so you're really serious about, if someone is got a card carrying Amex or whatever, Visa.
It helped that I was the director of the psych program in a department that had numerous majors. That may have been my key.
So even a former chair who wants to attend as an alumnus, there's no grandfathering or grandmothering, I suppose.
We do have a way of getting former chairs back here, and that's to invite them to speak.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
And if you go out one year, you're allowed to come back the next year, but only that.
But that tells you something. To go back to a question you asked a minute ago, and that is you asked about how do you get people to come back. Once they've been to the meeting, they want to come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out the rules of Fight Club. I just want to understand.
We don't talk about it.
So I mean,
I think that's part of the problem about this particular Fight Club.
I think the logic behind it is, and I may be making this up. You guys have far more history than I do. I'm a Midwestern, former Rocky Mountain person. This organization came out of SEPA. My guess is that, Eric, if you step out as chair next year and your new chair comes and you come, is there going to be potential conflict?
Oh, hell yes, if it's me.
Right. And
yeah.
So, and I'm guessing that might be part of the reason
that
why.
Makes perfectly good sense.
That because we actually are very honest and open in discussion of some of the harder issues that we face in our job, it's a very safe place for doing that.
Yes.
I think if we just clip that, you just recorded your first commercial. No, I'm being serious.
Yeah.
I think if people actually understood that about this organization and the how important and serious you take confidentiality and the problem solving, and that if a chair has an icky, sticky problem, whether it's personnel, student, curriculum, dealing with a difficult dean or a budget or one of the 14 things I haven't mentioned, they could come here for a weekend in Atlanta and come away with 18 different possible solutions to fly home to their campus. It's worth the price of admission times 10.
I think the amount of psychological safety here
which is random but true.
That's here allows people to talk about things and feel safe about that and learn so much because people are willing to share. And when they share, you're going, oh my God. I like the idea that you come away going, I'm so thankful where I am, and thank goodness.
Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
As bad as I thought it was. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the only problem is that means that one person in the room is the disaster story. Then they have to go home, and they're still the disaster story.
But I think they learn the same thing.
We all help.
I feel like they learn the same thing. That they've got a lot of support here with their disaster story.
Right.
That people are able to say, well, you think that's bad. I had a similar situation, and here's how I handled it. They learn from that.
I mean, today, I think you probably all heard me. I'm not a quiet person. somebody had a pretty bad story, and I said, hold on, I can one-up that. And I mean, it's that type of atmosphere where it's like, okay, we've all been there and survived it.
Yeah, you did have a way to bring the room down, and I'm trying to honor the rules and not reveal that story, so I won't. Let's go around the table. Would you mind just talking a little bit about your department, how long you've been department chair, maybe a little bit about your school so that our listeners have at least 3 slices of the different types of departments. Dave, if you'll start us off.
Sure. So I'm at the University of Central Missouri. We're a regional public master's level university, enrollment somewhere around 11,000 total. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm chair of an academic school now. We reorganized about a year and a half ago. I became chair of Department of Psychological Science 8 years ago. So I was chair of that for six and a half years. And now I'm a school chair of this multidisciplinary school.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So I'm at Georgia College and State University, and our branding is Georgia College, that we paid a lot of money to somebody to tell us what we already knew. But I'm in the Department of Psychological Science.
I can tell by your shirt, too, by the way.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes, we like our brand. And I have been at Georgia College for 33 years. I've been the chair for 14 years, not by choice, but I really enjoy what I do, obviously, or I wouldn't have stayed and done that. Georgia College and State University.
Wait, not by choice. Really? You've been forced against your will to be chair for the last 14 years. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I chose to volunteer to be chair after some history of our department with some other people, and as it came,
And he'd have to kill you if he told you. No, I'm just teasing.
Okay.
I can try to explain that. We had a chair left.
Sure.
And then it was a time to have a new chair. And prior to that, somebody volunteered to be the chair.
This is not a deposition. I mean,
I know that. I'm just trying to be correct. Somebody volunteered to be the chair, and that worked for a while, and then it didn't work. So when that ended, and when the time came, I said, I'm a group person. I can do this job. I'll do this. Staying on for 14 years was not my plan, but I have a really wonderful group of people in my department of 12 faculty and now 445 majors in a university of 6,000. While I've been there with my wonderful colleagues, and that's why I stay, is I have a wonderful group of people who, the thing that I think is different from other departments in my college is that once people get tenure, they stay involved. And the culture there is that you stay involved, and we're all in this, and that's been really wonderful. So that's the reason I stay, is I have a great group of people.
so we know that when you step away, that means there will be a lesser group of people.
Because of me leaving?
No, your leaving will be because the group of people have become lesser.
Ooh, he's quizzing you.
It's okay. It's we can edit this part out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Susie?
So my turn. I have to add in here that my first academic position was with you, Eric, as my department chair at Boise State University.
Wow.
That explains a lot.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Let the record reflect for our listeners at home that Lee is pouring himself some bourbon as Susie's telling her story.
I don't drink bourbon here.
But I mentioned the Boise State and makes Susie have to have a drink.
Well, actually, at dinner, we were all talking about how we were related to you. Somebody's husband roomed with you at a conference or at a great
King.
AP scoring.
Yes.
And, somebody else had been a faculty there and is here
Kelly,
now,
well,
Kelly.
Well,
Yeah.
Kelly Braitman, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I started out at Boise State, which I just loved. And my husband and I were both from northern Michigan, and very small town with an engineering university, Michigan Tech University. And my former mentor from another Michigan university called me one day in Boise and said, "Did you know that Tech is looking for a psychologist?" And I said, "No way." Comes to find out, they needed a psychologist to replace the psychologist that was leaving. I took the job, but was charged with developing programs. And so I was never chair. We developed a psych undergraduate major and graduate programs and a bunch of fun stuff. And I grew from me to about 12 faculty. So the 20, 30-year sitting chair retired, and I put my name in the hat, and here I am. I've been chair. This is my 6th year, and I'm up for renewal this year, so we'll be evaluated, etc. But Michigan Tech is a very different university than most of the chairs here. Yeah. We're at Carnegie 2, I think, classification, very strong research. Psychology is one of the smaller majors there because it's an engineering school. Budgets, I think, are a little fluffier there than they might be at other universities. But despite those things, there's another member of this group who's from a very similar institution. So she and I connected right away and have since stayed in touch.
That's awesome.
After leaving.
And still, most of the issues brought up
here
are still issues
absolutely.
You relate to. Yeah.
They are the same issues.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, let's think about trends. So you've been in higher ed, you were leaders in higher ed in your own disciplines, in your own departments. What trends are you seeing? Not necessarily personnel trends, but what kind of trends do you see? And maybe this is kind of a soft pitch for why should people keep coming to conferences like AHDP? What might be on the horizon for a 2020 or 2021 conference? What type of topics do you think will people be talking about tomorrow and next year and the year after? Just let's call this a popcorn session and make it. You can talk about whatever you want to.
Well, we've been kept pretty ahead of the curve on the learning objectives for the psych major.
We AHDP.
Yes,
yeah,
we at the group.
Yes.
We've also been very in the loop on the intro psych initiative, and kind of ahead of the curve on that. And so I feel like we do get informed about things prior to them coming out and actually potentially have some input on those things. We have speakers come in and have been invited to give feedback and et cetera. So I see, the assessment of student learning is clearly important and getting more important. I think that will always be a highlight of what we're doing and sharing ideas to improve that. Other things, I personally think students are changing. Higher ed is much more of a business model. I'm paying for a degree to get a good job. Yeah. And so the dynamics change. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing against students, but I think all of society is of that perspective. I'm paying for this, give me a product that works. And so education needs to adapt to some of that, and we find some of those things challenging.
I think the issue of personnel and where you can come here, and so the bandwidth is really high here because we're face-to-face, and the doors are closed, and you have the psychological safety, and you hear people say stuff, and it's like you can't make that up. That just, I can't believe that it's happening at that department, and how can we offer, or how hearing a story from start to finish about how it turned out and going, oh my God.
And I will preface what you just said with, we don't ever get real names.
Correct, absolutely.
So there is anonymity in how it's shared.
Right.
I'm sure if we were super detectives, we may be able to trace it down,
but we don't care about that.
We don't care, but and you're right. So the issue is when you can see how it was resolved.
Yes. Or not.
And the following year, the first question is, whatever happened?
Exactly, to that situation. I mean, I think having the bandwidth so present here because we're face-to-face and we're not just on email and is powerful.
Yeah.
I'm going to add something that's maybe a different way of looking at a trend, and that is, I think in higher education, faculty and chairs are more and more expected to do things that are not directly working with students and teaching.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's a lot of pushback.
Yes.
And I'm talking about documentation types of things.
Fundraising
types of things.
Investigations, too, like student dishonesty.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've seen happen with some of our AHDP sessions and discussion is, to the extent possible, trying to turn some of those things into activities that are actually meaningful and useful and contribute to student learning. Yeah. So a really good example is assessment, which can be a really big headache if you see it as purely, this is something that we have to document to please the powers that be and check all the boxes, and it can take a lot of time. Mm-hmm. But we talk here about assessment in terms of, well, how can we make it meaningful? How can we satisfy the requirements that we have to require for accrediting agencies and so forth, but also use those same energies to do what we want, which is to help students succeed and be the best that they can be.
I wanted to circle back to, I think, what either Susie or Lee said, just to kind of reinforce what you mentioned. When I was emailing back and forth with Dave about, recording here at AHDP, I said, actually, this is kind of ironic. Would there be room available to me? Could I make arrangements for this? And I said, at some of the conventions, Garth and I have been, recording keynotes. We've actually got a wireless lavalier and someone could be wireless in the room. And Dave almost immediately emailed me back and said, "Oh no, actually, it was just as polite as that. It was like, we have a very strict policy. We do not record sessions. Yep. We do not record anything in the sessions, and we won't be able to." So he said, "I'll work on a room for you," which has worked out almost perfectly well. But it's worked out well. Thank you very much. But we won't record sessions, and so that's just to kind of reinforce what you've just said. There, what other? I'm trying to think of what other conference can I go to and raise a concern, and know that there is this wall of anonymity and confidentiality. Actually, it's more confidentiality than anything.
I would say the only other meeting you could do that at is AA.
We weren't supposed to talk about that outside our meeting, Susie.
Sorry.
Yeah,
and I don't mean that to be sarcastic.
No.
Or
I know you. Oh, I know you don't.
But it's the safety of this group that makes this group work. Yeah. And if you've never been here, that might be really difficult to understand. But to be able to share openly some of the problems, struggles. My so-and-so supervisor hates me. Here's what they've done. How would you respond? You need that safe place environment to be able to open up to that.
The other piece is that you can't put that out on our listserv. Yeah. And get that kind of response. Right. You can put out a thing about my dean wants to know how many blah 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 are doing blah blah blah.
What's your zip code?
Exactly.
What do you use?
Here, it is a psychological safety to say, I've got an issue or help me with this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then I have a question for you, which is serious and non-trivial. Mm-hmm. Can I release this podcast?
Absolutely.
Oh yes, sure.
I'm being serious. You've been talking about all the things that you do, that we do, but that you don't publicize. And
we
now
haven't identified any specific situations that a specific individual has.
No, I
Eric,
know.
I want to go back to, if people like this and want to be here, they should come. Those are the people that we want to come. They're the people that really see this as a valuable opportunity. For me, it's not, and also not being sent here by their dean, but they're coming here because a chair told them to come, or they're at an STP conference and somebody says, you're a new chair, you should go to this conference. Like there's a collegiality.
I believe that Eric's point is valid in that I wouldn't have understood this group until I had experienced it.
Yeah.
And so for somebody who has never come, how do they know that it is as wonderful as we say it is?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about it till I was invited to speak.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to grow the group that way, you're going to grow it by N of 1 per year. Unless you just happen to, that's the piece.
We've tossed around some ideas of trying to work with APA to see if they would either message chairs or, send us names of chairs. We have in the past, like I had one of my students go through every university in Michigan and find contact information for chairs.
We've done that for multiple years.
Yeah, and we've done that, but by the time that data is collected, half of them are done being chairs. Yeah. So it's difficult to maintain.
The data on departments and chairs is woefully comical. It's I think APA has it somewhere in the Center for Workforce Studies.
Yeah.
Maybe, but and I actually did, Susie, something comparable to you one year. I had a student go through some database by hand and collect all the data for the undergraduate departments of psychology in the nation. At the time, 1,273 departments of psychology in the nation in an Excel spreadsheet. In 2009, and then I paid out of pocket some students to do it. And then I had some students update it again in, I want to say 2013 or 2015. And then Martha Baynow in the APA Education Directorate wanted to do something. No, not bought it. Wanted to do something and couldn't get the Center for Workforce Studies to give it to her. So she asked me for my list. I gave it to her. Mm-hmm. I love those folks at APA.
And Martha's been a big supporter of this
group.
Yes,
as well she should be.
Yes. Yeah. And she has been, yes.
Yeah, and she should be. And so I think what's going to happen, and I hope that the podcast, takes you guys from 38 this year to, what would that be, 38, 40, 80, 70, what's 76 next year. I hope you double. I hope you have trouble finding the rooms. Mm-hmm. I hope you can't have lunch in the same room because it can't hold as many.
A lovely problem to have.
I wonder. I feel like if we can get around 60 people here where it stays intimate enough that we can have the conversation, to me, if it gets bigger than that, it's harder.
Hold on. We're
you to struggle.
Psychology faculty.
We can figure that out.
I think we can figure that problem out.
But I've been giving that some thought because there are many more chairs of psych departments than our members here.
Absolutely.
And not all of them would necessarily feel like they wanted to take advantage of what we offer or needed to. But there are many that probably would, that don't know about us yet.
I agree.
And I believe the podcast will help. So yes, please do release it. But I've been thinking about what if we had, what I think would be a nice problem would be that we grow exponentially. And I agree with the sentiment that maybe we couldn't have the same type of meeting if we had 400 people instead of 40.
Maybe we'd do meetings at the regionals.
Maybe we do meetings at the regional. Maybe we have something like this, but we have 10 of them across the country. Mm-hmm. There are ways that we can create this type of resource for chairs if there's enough interest.
And I think it's a yes and. It's a yes that and. One of the things that concerns me, and this is a compliment to all three of you, is that this type of organization probably doesn't grow on the backs of the three of you. No. It's too much work. you probably need at some point an infrastructure of committees, committee chairs, maybe vice presidents or associate chairs or something. It's too much.
If
for
it
three
grows
people.
exponentially, maybe, but having been the current chair, I mean, the blip is around this conference, and that's why it's easy. I feel like it's easy to get people to be involved in leadership.
But the blip is with 60 people. If it were 600 people,
Oh yeah.
I think I don't know that it would survive 600 people.
no, it could survive, but you have to have a conference planner.
True, but
And you have
I just don't know that we would want to be there. Personally, I don't know if I want to be there. At a 600
I
people.
can actually envision that as being held at the regional level.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So
Yeah, okay.
all the Midwestern folks, we're going to tag on to MPA and go a day early or stay a day late or whatever we do. And I could see that happening relatively
But Lee,
easily.
let me ask you this, and this is really unfair and crass, and we can edit this out too. If you had 60 students show up to the counseling center, you don't turn them away, right? 60 students show up to the counseling center at your school. Do you turn them away?
No, we don't turn them away, but we find a way to work with them in a way that's meaningful to them. We
Okay.
can't deal with all of them at the same
Right.
time.
Now you have 600 students show up to the counseling center. What do?
We have to hire
You
a
don't
bunch
turn
of people.
you don't turn them away, do you?
Have to hire people, yeah.
You have to hire a lot of people. You can't
Yeah.
deal with 600 students.
No, but you gotta help them as best you can.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So the nature of the help might change, and the speed at which you deliver it might change. But providing some help is better than
I
providing
agree
no
with
help
that,
at all.
yeah. Maybe I'm old school and holding on to the essence of kind of what we are and what we continue to be. Even connected to the regional conferences, I think we can emulate perhaps what goes on here. But the thing I appreciate about being here is that that's all we're doing. We're not doing this and pulled
Yeah,
away and
I
pulled
know.
away and pulled away because we're at a regional conference. We're just doing this.
I know, but that is sweet. It's almost like Woodridge Reserve bourbon. It's sweet and it's in a small batch, but so few people are getting it. Yeah. It's almost like it's awesome. It's amazing, but it's almost like for the special people who get to have it. And it's almost like, wouldn't it be awesome if a bigger amount of people got some of it, but even if it wasn't so, what if you could take your course and offer it online to a larger number of people? Wouldn't your course online to a larger audience be better than nothing at all?
Of course. Yeah, that's just not a fair choice.
I know it's not. I'm not playing fair.
Right. But
It's
to me,
my
no,
podcast.
Exactly. To me, keeping it what it is the power of it. And
Okay.
and
I
So
respect
I'm
that.
optimistic that if we did grow, we would certainly figure out a way
of course.
to maintain the essence and the safety of the sharing, etc. We'd find a way to make it work. There might be a few hiccups along the way, but we would figure it out.
Well, maybe you cap it at 60.
I mean,
And-
to me, Eric, it's half the size now than it was when I first came.
Yeah.
And it's still the same thing. It's still the same essence, but it's still, it's
But
half the size.
cap it at 60, cap it at 80, but have 4 of them a year.
I don't know that we could,
If you had 320 people express interest
and we're willing to come. Yeah,
and we're willing to come and
deal with
pay,
that, yeah.
but you don't have to put on all 4.
Right.
Right.
You could do one in Atlanta, and you do one in Phoenix, and you do one in Denver, and somebody else does one in Pittsburgh.
You can do the one in Pittsburgh, Aaron.
Yeah. I'm not
I don't
going to
have the expertise to do it in Pittsburgh, but I'll bet there's people in this room who've done it. I'll bet Jen Simmons, could do it, right?
So one thing that I think in my time here that's been tossed around ever so gently is the notion of, why is it always in Atlanta?
Yeah.
And that is, from a historic perspective, it's always been in Atlanta because of its affiliation with SEPA, and that basically it was just a couple of state area here, and everyone drove to the conference to get together. Now that we've got people here from Colorado, Idaho, northern
Kansas
Michigan,
City, even.
Wherever, Nebraska, the other side of Nebraska. At some point, I think revisiting that may make Lee cry, but we probably have to do that.
Come out to Boise, Idaho. Boy, I'd love to host you.
The other piece has been is Atlanta's big hub, so everybody's
This is
able
true.
to get there pretty quick, easily from a flight standpoint.
2 flights for me, but it was
Two
worth
flights
it.
for me.
But again, I don't think it has to be mutually exclusive.
No,
we
no.
can have a meeting in Atlanta every year, and it doesn't mean we can't have a meeting in Boise.
Or
That's
regional
right.
meetings.
Yeah.
Regionals,
right.
I think, are a great
Yeah,
idea.
and I certainly didn't mean to purposely come in and toss the apple cart upside down.
I like that.
You all, I hope you know how much I admire what you're doing, and I am a fan, and I hope you understand that my prerogative is there should be more people here. You're the best kept secret.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize, Lee. I know I'm making you nervous by
No.
talking about taking this small,
Not at all.
intimate
Not at all.
audience. And when I talk about 60 versus 600, the sweat is pouring down your brow.
I think
And-
that's
just
the
that-
bourbon.
that's the bourbon?
It's
Okay.
just at 600, I wouldn't come. I wouldn't feel a need to show up because that would remind me of the other chair conferences that I've been to, which is 600.
What
or
if we
1,000
had
people.
600 come, but we split them up into 10 rooms of 60?
What if you were the keynote speaker?
Why?
Because you're one of the founders of AHDP.
No, I'm not. No, I'm just-
You've
no,
been around.
I've been around, but I'm not one of the
Who,
founders.
who's the founder of AHDP?
Well, see, that's a little bit of the problem. There was a loss of records at one point. I don't know a whole lot about it, but do we know who founded it?
Was there a flood? What happened?
No.
No, it came out of the flood came from the website.
Oh, there was a flood.
Yeah, the
It's
website.
It was an
antediluvian.
electronic flood.
Electronic flood,
Yeah, it was a
yeah.
website that.
It birthed out of the Southeastern Psychological Association.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Who
right.
started it? Do you know? Like an
No, I don't know
individual?
the- no, I don't
yeah,
know the
we don't
individual.
even know.
I was
Okay.
just advised to come, and I came in like whenever that was, 2004. or
I
so.
think you've been grandfathered in as the grandfather.
You're grandfathering me.
I think I am right now. Does anybody have an objection?
I
No.
have an objection.
I think this is an executive board meeting that
Yeah, I
I
think
have.
you're right, yeah.
I have no power here, but I think I'm the secretary of this meeting as I'm recording it.
We do have a board.
Yes.
Oh,
We have
yes,
a
you
charter.
do. That's right.
We have a charter.
We have
mission.
bylaws.
Bylaws. Thank you.
Bylaws. There's laws and bylaws.
And so I referred to the electronic flood, but there truly was a loss of records
Yeah.
at one point when the IT person in charge of the website left the university and
Yep.
stuff disappeared.
Okay, but
And
usually that stuff is archived. Then there's usually backups.
That didn't happen. That was during my year as being the chair of this
Oh, it
group.
was? I didn't know that.
It
I'm
all
sorry.
went away. Yeah, it was just unbeknownst to us about how that all happened.
Where was it housed? What website?
At a university that will go unnamed, and the IT person, not mine, no, not at all. The IT person was picked by the chair at the time who could build a website, and everything went there.
Okay.
And then we lost it.
I'll bet you some student who's a computer science major, there's a project in there for him.
That would be amazing because I think they lost the website, paying for the website, that whole piece.
Yeah, but you can go. I know there's places
You can
where
go
you
back
can
in-
go
like
back.
in
You can
time.
see Amazon's page
True.
1 from
Yeah.
day 1.
Perhaps that could happen. That'd
Yeah.
be nice for the
I work at a technological university. I bet I could put a student on that.
Go for it.
I bet you $1 it's recoverable. I've got $1.
At least $1. Okay.
I
bet
can't
you
figure out how
$1.
to get the malware off my computer, so it's not going to be me.
That's because one of those students at your university put it on your
Probably.
laptop. That's why. So you guys have almost given me a complete hour, which I appreciate, minus that one interruption we had. Is there anything?
I do want to throw something in. That
Please.
I've been able to take away simple activities for my department that I know work because people say they've been doing this for a while. And I'll give you an example. So from Stetson University, Richard, talked about using a reference form. So anybody in their department who wanted to have a reference from a faculty member filled out a form. And then that went to the faculty member. So what we do, we took that, and our admin person collects all that data from that form. So we have this authentic assessment of all of our folks who apply to all these graduate schools in a simple form. And when I heard that here, I was like, duh, that is makes so much sense.
Lee, I'm going to take that one step further because I was here when he shared that. So I went home with that same idea. Yes. I think I got his form and brought it to the attention of somebody in my university that shouldn't we be doing this for everyone that asks for a letter?
Yes.
Not just in my and so the university has adopted because it is a release of a FERPA issue.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what we had to add to our form, but still, it was a simple idea, but it's just helped us out so much in terms of an authentic assessment.
Sure.
Piece that I just that was a simple example of something we get from here.
Dave, it's your turn.
I would just throw in, and I think that example illustrates this. You can tell that there's a spirit of generosity among our membership.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's coincidental because the sorts of people who choose to become members tend to be at institutions that highly value teaching.
Yes.
And as you have talked about on the podcast before, Eric, people in the teaching of psych community have that generosity of spirit, and it's really that same spirit that we see with AHDP. And so I think that rings true for both of those organizations.
What a dirty trick for you to turn my own words against me here at the end of this podcast.
Well-deserved.
A well-deserved dirty trick? I agree.
Well-deserved words against you,
dirty
for
trick.
All the stuff you do. Yeah.
So I'll give all of you the last chance, last call, so to speak. Anything else you want to say to our listeners about AHDP? So
other than I also struggle with the acronym, I have to always ask my administrative assistant, is it AHDP or ADHP? Because I can
ADD.
I know, and because I just don't know. But other than that, it truly, I think your point, playing a little bit of a devil's advocate, is well made and appreciated, that we are a great thing, and even though we are hiding, I don't think it's our intent to hide.
Correct. Yes.
And absolutely would welcome with open arms anyone that wants to join us. So I'm very hopeful that through this podcast we get people who at least reach out and say, give me a little more info about that.
Absolutely. And it's ahdpinfo.org.
Exactly.
Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Correct.
ahdpinfo.org. All right. So I'm going to thank Dave Kreiner, Lee Gillis, Susie Amato Henderson. It's been a long but good conference day. Thank you again from Atlanta for being on the Psych Sessions podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.